Hello friends, so let us continue our discussion on the transient creep. So in the previous lecture or the second part of it, we saw why it is important to consider the transient creep. So in all these preceding lectures, when we were considering the creep mechanisms, the associated the different creep mechanisms NS. So the characteristic relation for each of these creep mechanisms we derived by relating the steady state creep to that of the parameters that govern the creep mechanism, that is the stress and the temperature. So all that we were focused on was the steady state creep. The reason why people might sometimes focus largely on the steady state creep is because when you consider the representative creep curve, that involves strain and time, it looks something like this. You would have your instantaneous creep followed by the transient creep and the steady state creep, which is subsequently followed by the accelerating creep. So you have the instantaneous creep region, the transient creep region and the steady state creep region, and ultimately the failure or the accelerating creep region. So when you talk about from the perspective of the overall lifetime of the material, so when you want to consider the overall lifetime of the material, the most of this life is spent in the steady state condition. So this is a rather, whatever we have here is rather a schematic representation. So whenever you talk about a material in a practical application where the temperature is relatively high when you compare it to its melting point or the ambient temperature, and when you consider till the failure of the material, a major part or major portion of the life of the material at that high temperature is spent in the steady state condition. And that is the reason why whenever we talk about the mechanisms, the creep mechanism, or when you want to have a characteristic equation for the creep mechanisms, we begin by considering or studying the steady state creep rate. Now we want to shift our focus from the life of the material to that of the strain the material exhibits. So in this representative curve, when we ignore the accelerating creep as ignored by Andrade, and we consider the stage 1 and stage 2 of the creep, that includes instantaneous creep, steady state creep, or rather transient creep and the steady state creep, the strain exhibited by the material is largely due to the combination of the instantaneous and the steady state creep. The strain is largely due to stage 1, which is the combination of instantaneous and steady state, or rather, pardon me, instantaneous and the transient creep. So the major portion of the strain is rendered by the combination of the transient and instantaneous creep. So transient and the instantaneous creep, and only a very small change is observed during the steady state condition, and that is what characterizes the steady state condition, and that is what we mean by the steady state condition. So whatever strain we observe is primarily due to the combination of instantaneous and transient creep, and that is the reason why we want to focus in or study the transient creep behavior of the material. So the reason we want to talk about the transient creep or the stage 1 as a whole is because from the behavioral point of view, from the strain point of view, whatever strain you observe during a creep behavior of a material, or when you have a material that is operating at a high temperature for over a prolonged period of time, the strain that is exhibited by the material is largely due to the combination of instantaneous creep and the transient creep, and this combination is sometimes we refer to it as the stage 1. Now depending on the temperature at which the material operates, so the high temperature is often a range of temperature for a given material. So this, when you have a range, so you can distinguish the range into a lower range and the higher. So if you have a range say 1000 to 1100 degree, 1000 to 1200 degrees Celsius, then maybe 1000 to 1100, maybe 1000 to 1050 may be the lower range, and 1150 to 1200 might be higher range. So you will be able to distinguish within the high temperature a range that is relatively low and a range that is relatively high, and based on that we have two forms of transient creep. So based on within the high temperature range, the temperature at which the material is operating, you can have a low temperature transient creep and a high temperature transient creep. So in the previous section or the previous lecture, we tried to address why we don't have a low stress transient creep and high stress transient creep, or the combinations of temperature and stress. This is largely because irrespective of the stresses in the transient creep behavior or in the transient creep region, it is the creep that plays a or rather it is the stress that plays a dominant role. So irrespective of the magnitude of the stress, it is the stress that plays a dominant role in the transient creep region. If the stress is low stress, even then it will play a dominant role. If the stress is high stress, even then it will play a dominant role. So rho and I again are the relative terms, and that's the reason why we have a differentiation between low temperature transient creep and high temperature transient creep, because it is the amount of, or this distinction governs the amount of role the temperature plays in a largely stress dominant region. So this distinction, it says the amount of role the temperature plays, or the amount of contribution the temperature offers in largely a stress governed creep. So that is the reason why we have a low temperature transient creep and a high temperature transient creep. Now let us begin by considering or having a characteristic relation for the low temperature transient creep. Now the characteristic feature of the transient creep, or the other name for the transient creep, is the decelerating creep. Decelerating creep. So it has this name because as the time increases, the creep rate, let us write this as TR, transient creep rate, it decreases. So what essentially we have is a numerical relation that shows with time the creep rate decreases in the transient creep region. So we have an inverse proportionality of the transient creep rate with respect to the time. However, we want to introduce, considering that both instantaneous and transient creep, they both offer the maximum strain or the large amount of strain that you observe during the creep behavior, we have to include the time taken for the instantaneous creep. Supposing the TIN is the time taken for the instantaneous creep, this might be lower than the overall creep behavior. So this time taken for the instantaneous creep, this might be, when you compare to the overall life of the material, the overall creep test duration during which you have the creep test, this might be very much lower and you can ignore it. However, when you compare the time of the instantaneous creep to that of the transient creep, you don't have the same relation. Even though this might be lower, you don't have the same relation. So therefore, in this expression, you need to include the time taken for the instantaneous creep, which of course might be, or which of course is a constant, is close to a constant. So therefore, an expression that relates the transient creep rate to that of the time should include the instantaneous, or the time taken for the instantaneous creep, which in this context is a constant. So therefore, the transient creep rate and its proportionality to the time is including the instantaneous creep contribution as expressed in this manner. Now the constant of proportionality can be written as, so there is, in order to get rid of this proportionality here, you introduce the term epsilon 1 and you write this as T plus TIN. So you have an expression for the transient creep rate So this should be TR and a TR here. So you know that in the transient creep rate decreases with time. You have included the instantaneous time to it, and then you have an expression or removed the proportionality constant. Here you have included the instantaneous time or instantaneous creep time, and you have removed the proportionality constant. Ultimately you have an expression something like this. Now what one can do is bring this dt here. So that means you would end up having here epsilon 1, which is the proportionality constant, t is the time, and tin is the time taken for the instantaneous creep dt. Now you can integrate both these sides of the equation, and when you integrate both these sides of the equation, what you would end up having is within the transient creep, so within the transient creep, so this is within the transient creep, the whole consideration is within the transient creep, then you would end up having an expression that tells what is the strain within the transient creep for a given time t. So when you bring the dt here and integrate both these sides, you would end up with an expression that will tell you within the transient creep at time t what would be the strain experienced by the material. So then if you integrate it, you would have epsilon 1, which is the proportionality constant, ln of t plus tin, and there is always a constant that is involved during integration. Now this constant, if you solve for it, would be nothing but the instantaneous strain. So you would have your instantaneous strain that is written by epsilon in plus the proportionality constant and ln of t plus tin. So now for within the transient creep or within the stage 1, since we have now identified the constant as the instantaneous creep or instantaneous strain, so within the stage 1 for a given time t, when you substitute the given time t, include the time taken for the instantaneous creep here, and we identify the constant of proportionality, then you would be able to find the strain at time t within stage 1 of creep. So within the stage 1 of creep, for low temperature transient creep, so for low temperature transient within the stage 1 of the creep for a given time t, you will be able to calculate the strain experienced by the material through this expression. So this expression, it includes the instantaneous strain and a constant of proportionality, then the time and the time taken for the instantaneous strain. We have a logarithmic term here. So we relate the strain at a given time t to the time t through the logarithmic term, and that's why this is referred to as the logarithmic creep. So the low temperature transient creep is also at times referred to as the logarithmic creep. Now, so the generalized expression for the logarithmic creep or the low temperature transient creep, which includes the strain at the during the instantaneous creep, the proportionality constant ln of t plus tin, where t is the time that is varying, tin is a constant that takes care of the instantaneous creep or time taken during the instantaneous creep, and this we refer, or the generalized version of this would be something like this. Let's have a power here in terms of n. So the generalized expression for the low temperature creep or the logarithmic creep is of this form. You have the strain at this stage 1 at a given time t can be calculated by considering the strain, the instantaneous strain, the instantaneous time taken for the instantaneous creep, and introducing the time that you want to calculate, and the proportionality constant, of course including the or involving the logarithmic relation. So this is the generalized expression for the logarithmic creep or the low temperature transient creep. So this expression tells you what would be the strain exhibited by the material when it is operating at the low temperature range within the transient or the stage 1 of the creep. So basically the reason we wanted to focus on the transient creep is because the transient creep would offer you, or it would be the mechanism that would give you the dominant strain exhibited by the material during the creep testing. And therefore our final expression is of this form, wherein you are able to calculate the strain of the material at a point T within the stage 1 or the transient creep region when you include the instantaneous creep, the time taken for the instantaneous creep, and the time here. So this indicates that, of course, as the time increases within the transient creep region, the overall strain of the material also increases. And even though there is a proportional increase in the strain within the transient creep region with the time, the rate at which it increases begins to decelerate, or it continues to decelerate. So both these, that is the decrease in the rate but the increase in the amount of strain, both these are captured in this expression here, and since we have a logarithmic term, we refer to it as the logarithmic creep. Now the reason for this, that is, even though we have a deformation, we have an elongation, we have a strain that is exhibited during the transient region, the reason for the decrease is, or the reason for this particular behavior, a decelerating creep rate but an increasing strain, is given by few theories. So there are two theories that are largely available, or that are largely accepted. So one is a theory on exhausting dislocation source. So exhausting dislocation. So there are several theories that that reason out why this specific this particular behavior is observed. That is, even though you have a strain during the you have a noticeable strain during the transient region, why the rate decreases. We have several theories to back this observation. However, there are two theories that are generally accepted. So based on that acceptance, we can identify two theories, and one of the theory is the exhausting dislocation source theory. So what this theory states is that the plastic deformation that renders the strain in the transient region, if you could recollect, the strain in the transient region is largely plastic. Only in the instantaneous region you have the combination of elastic, anelastic and the plastic. In the transient region it is largely plastic. So to have a plastic deformation in the transient region, in addition to the propagation of the dislocation, you need to have the nucleation of the dislocations as well. So in addition to the propagation, you need to have the nucleation of the dislocation, because as the time increases, the existing dislocation, because of the temperature, because of the influence of the temperature, they either annihilate or they rearrange. This we saw in the previous discussions as well. So when you have the influence of temperature playing a role, then the number of dislocation densities, it decreases. So we need to have an additional nucleation of dislocation. Now in order to nucleate dislocation, the way or the expression that governs the nucleation of dislocation is of this form: V naught x minus delta q d kappa t. So this qd is the activation energy that needs to be overcome in order to nucleate a dislocation. So whenever your system is able to, or whenever the condition is suitable so that it is able to overcome this particular activation energy, then a new dislocation will nucleate. This term here, it refers to the frequency of vibration. So for a given temperature, we have a frequency of vibration of atoms. When this frequency of vibration along with the activation energy only with the specific combination of the frequency of vibration and the activation energy, you will have nucleation of dislocation, and for the nucleation of dislocation you need to overcome the activation energy. So this term as a whole, it talks about the probability of atoms or probability of dislocations or probability of sources producing a dislocation. This term as a whole, which includes the frequency of vibration, activation energy, this whole term here talks about the probability of source producing a dislocation. Now, when the initial stages, when the dislocation energy is, when the activation energy is small, the spots or the sources wherein the activation energy is small or low, the dislocations begin to nucleate. However, when all these sources begins to nucleate dislocation, there will be other sources that wants to nucleate dislocations. But given that their activation energy is high, they will not be able to nucleate any further dislocations. But even around that sources, there will be a definite frequencies of vibrations. So it might be possible that over a period of time, for a longer duration of time, these vibrations might lead to formation or the nucleation of dislocation in the sources wherein the activation energy is higher. So what we mean by that is, supposing you have two sources D1 and the corresponding activation energy of these two sources of this relation, that is there is a low energy source and the high energy source. The frequency of, based on the frequency of vibration, when we assume the frequency of vibration is constant, then the probability of the nucleation produced by D2 will be much less than that of D1. However, as time proceeds, this D2 will also render some dislocation, but this is a factor of time. So given that the activation energy or the overcome of the possibility of overcoming it happens at the very early stage, or this remains to be operational even from the very early stage, the additional contribution should come from the activation of the new dislocation sources. So the sources that are with the low activation energy, they continue to operate from the very initial stages. In order to provide the new dislocation, you have to rely upon the operation of the other dislocation sources with higher energy. But the dislocation sources with higher energy, the frequency with which they produce the dislocation or the probability with which they produce the dislocation is quite small, and therefore you won't be able to expect as much as dislocation that is produced by the low energy sources. And this is one of the reasons why we have a decelerating creep in the transient region. The reason why we have a decelerating creep is because as time increases, the frequency also increases. So therefore, all the dislocation source, if everything depends on the frequency alone, then all the dislocation source should render same amount of dislocations. However, in addition to the frequency of vibration, you have the activation term here. The dislocation sources with low activation energy begins to exhaust, and we have to rely upon the dislocation sources with high activation energy, and the probability of dislocation being produced in the dislocation sources of high activation energy is small, and that is the reason why we see a deceleration in the creep. So it all depends on how many nucleation of dislocations are possible. So the number of nucleations that are being produced, if it is dependent on just on frequency of vibration, it will keep on increasing with time. However, since it also depends on the activation energy, and based on activation energy you have low activation energy source and high activation energy source, and the frequency of dislocation being produced by the high activation energy source is quite small, we have an exhaustion of the low activation energy dislocations. And that is the reason why, that is one of the reason why we see the deceleration in the creep rate in the transient region. And the other reason is quite known to us, We often refer to that as the strain hardening behavior. Of course, it is a part of the strain hardening behavior, but generally another way of talking about this behavior, that is the reason for the decelerating creep, is the accumulation of stress. So within the transient region, the existing dislocation, it poses a stress condition that needs to be overcome for the newly formed dislocation to propagate. So in the transient region, or in the during transient creep, when you have a sufficient amount of dislocation already existing within the material for the formation of new dislocation, that is nucleation of new dislocation and their propagation, you need to overcome the stress conditions that are already being introduced by the existing dislocation. And for that reason, you need to have the dislocation that are sufficiently mobile, that have sufficient energy to overcome this accumulation of stresses. And that is the reason why you have a decelerating strain within the stage 1 of the creep. So these are the two theories that states why we have a decelerating creep in this transient stage. So the one explanation is the exhaustion of the dislocation sources. This exhaustion of dislocation sources is primarily because, in addition to the frequency of vibration of atoms, we have an activation energy that needs to be overcome in order to nucleate dislocation. And this activation energy is different for different dislocation sources. And in case of high energy dislocation sources, the frequency or the probability of new dislocation being formed is quite low, and therefore all the low energy dislocation sources, once they are exhausted, we don't have any more contribution, or we have very small contribution from the high energy dislocation sources, and that is the reason for the decelerating creep. The other reason is for the decelerating creep is because of the accumulation of stress. So when we talk about strain hardening, we talk in terms of the need for requiring additional stress to add to the existing plastic strain. So that is quite relatable to a stress strain curve, wherein you keep on adding the stress to bring about the strain. But however, in case of creep, particularly in the transient region, we are talking about a constant stress condition. So that means we have to consider, or we have to have a discussion that is based on this constant stress condition. So the reason for the transient creep or the decelerating creep under the transient or constant stress condition is because the existing nuclear dislocation, the existing deformation in the material, it establishes a accumulation of stress in the material. So the newly formed dislocation, it needs to overcome this stress in order to propagate, and that is the reason for the difficulty in propagating this accumulated stress is the reason for the decelerating creep. So these are the two theories that reasons out why we have an expression something like this, why we have a transient creep behavior. So we saw that in the low temperature, in the low temperature transient creep, we have a logarithmic relation between the strain within the transient creep region, and this includes the initial or the instantaneous strain and also the time taken for the instantaneous strain. And we have, for the generalized term, we have a power law relation along with the logarithmic. We introduce a power along to this logarithmic relation, and this power can be fitted based on the experimental observation. So generally, or this expression as a whole, what we are essentially doing is we are relating the strain or the creep in the transient region to that of the time through a logarithmic relation. So the logarithmic creep or the logarithmic relation between the strain and the time characterizes the low temperature transient creep. Now let us move on to the high temperature transient creep. So this high temperature transient creep, if you could recollect, we saw it in the in a different context, meaning when we consider the Andrade expression for the overall creep curve. So we saw that Andrade considered this creep curve, he ignored this, and he arrived at an expression for the overall creep curve, and his expression for the transient creep was of this form: T to the power 1 by m. So he arrived at this expression for the strain or the transient strain within the strain within the transient region, and when you want to calculate the strain within the transient region, he said it is proportional to T to the power of 1 by m. So this m, the value of this m, it depends on the material, and usually it is close to 3. So this was the expression that was rendered by Andrade, and in the high temperature range of the transient creep, you observe experimentally also the similar relation. So the high temperature creep or high temperature transient creep, the expression for this is of this form: ETR epsilon In plus 30 to the power m. So this beta is the proportionality constant, m is the power, and this m is often is close to 3, and t is the time, and this here again is the instantaneous creep. So we have for a high temperature transient creep an expression something like this. So for an high temperature transient creep for a given time t, the strain at that creep region is of this form. You have the contribution from the instantaneous creep, you have a proportionality term, and the t is to the power of 1 by m or 1 by 3. So this expression here, it characterizes the high temperature transient creep. So we have two different transient creep, that is low temperature transient creep and the high temperature transient creep. In the low temperature transient creep, the strain for a given time t, it is related to the time through the logarithmic relation, and therefore it is referred to as the logarithmic creep, and this often for a generalized expression we raise it to the power n. And in case of high temperature transient creep, we have an expression that relates time to the power of 1 by m, and m is often equal to 3. So these are the characteristic expression for the high temperature transient creep and the low temperature transient creep. So the creep behavior or the strain brought about by the overall creep behavior, it is dominant or it is largely brought during the transient creep region. So when you observe a creep testing, or when you see a material operating at a high temperature, the strain exhibited by the material is largely brought about by the transient region or the stage 1 of the region. Depending on the temperature in which the material is operating, the strain it exhibits can be quantified. When the temperature the material is operating is of the lower range, then we have a logarithmic relation between the time and the transient creep that is shown here. So this is all within the transient region. And similarly, when the temperature in which the material is operating is on the high temperature range, then the strain in the transient region is related to the time through this relation. And of course, when you talk about the strain in the transient region, you need to include the strain in the instantaneous region as well. So both these terms include the strain in the instantaneous region as well, so that the overall stage 1 is being considered. So in this lecture, we have seen the need for considering the transient strain, and we saw that depending on the temperature in which the transient strain is observed, we either have a logarithmic relation or a power relation. Now the reason for this transient behavior or for the low temperature is because there are several theories. So one theory is the exhaustion of the dislocation source. When you have an high energy dislocation source, the frequency with which the dislocation is being produced, it is small, or the probability with which the dislocation is produced by the high energy dislocation source is small, and before it could produce any more dislocation, the role of the temperature plays in, and we move into the steady state creep region. So before the high energy dislocation sources could contribute to the transient creep, we have the role of temperature play in, and then movement, and we move into the steady state region. So therefore, within the transient region, there is not much source that are active. And the other theory is that the already existing dislocation, they produce a stress condition that makes it difficult for the nucleation and the propagation of the dislocation. So both these theories, they indicate a reason, or they suggest a reason for the transient creep in the low temperature. For high temperature, it is quite straightforward, like what we have discussed in the previous lecture, because we largely focused on this high temperature form of transient creep, and this is primarily because we need to add, when we want to add to the existing dislocation or existing strain, then we need to increase the amount of stress that is required. So plainly here it is the strain hardening that is operational at high temperature transient creep. Here we have exhaustion of creep or exhaustion of the dislocation source or the accumulation of stress, and here in the high temperature transient creep, it is plainly the strain hardening. So the strain hardening is more relatable to the high temperature creep or than that of the high temperature transient creep than that of the low temperature transient creep. So with this, I would like to wind this lecture up, and we will continue from the transient creep, and we will move from the transient creep to other behavior of materials in the subsequent lectures. Goodbye.